Hello everyone, welcome to the next part of Next.js 13 series. In this part we are going to cover everything about the Next.js 13 app directory, and also we will cover our pages directory to the Next.js app directory. So for this we'll go to the browser, and from here we'll type just Next.js 13, or you can just type Next.js, and from here you can use the nextjs.org website. Here we got all the documentation of Next.js, but for Next.js 13 we need this part. If we click on this, we'll get all the information here about the new things in the app directory and how everything is working. So for those who have already Next.js 12, you can just use this command to update or to upgrade everything to Next.js 13. But the main point to notice here that the app directory is currently in beta, and Next says we do not recommend using it in production yet. You can use the Next.js 13 with the pages directory with stable features like improved next images and next link, which we did so far in this course. But today I'm going to update everything to the app directory, so if in future if they say now app directory is also ready for the production, so we can use that this way also. Now here we got more information about the Next.js app directory, but the full documentation is not here. Now here if we go to docs, now as you see we got everything documentation about the Next.js 12. So the app directory is not here. So if we search for app directory, we can't find anything about app directory. But here as you see this information, you got this link. If you click on this, you will be redirected to the beta version of the Next.js app directory documentation. Now the link, as you see here, it is beta.nextjs.org/docs. So in this documentation, you got everything you need to know about Next.js 13 app directory. So here, for example, the getting started. Now here is an overview of everything, but for most of time we need the installation. So if we come here, you can see you can use these commands to create a new project using Next.js 13 and also the experimental app directory. So we can use this flag to create new app with this app directory already there. But if you already have Next.js 13 or Next.js 12, you can just run these commands to update everything. And also then you have to manually add all these scripts. But for us at the moment is this part important. Here we got something inside Next.js config.js. Inside that we have to add this command from here. Now if we add this, and it will make the app directory to true, which means we will get access to our app directory, and that's what we are going to do here. So I'll copy this one and we will go to the Visual Studio, and from here we go to the next.config.js, and here like our images, so we'll add that code here. So now we are applying the experimental app directory to true. Now I can save this, and after saving that we will see no changes yet, so we don't get any app directory here. So now let's go ahead and run our project and see what happens. So now here I'll say npm run dev, so it will run our project. Now as you see it's already running, so let's go to the browser, or we can just increase this and from here use the link. But now here you have to note something. You will see you have an error here or a warning. It says you have enabled experimental feature, which is app directory and nextjs.config.js. Experimental features are not covered by Semver and may cause unexpected or broken application behavior. Use at your own risk. So if you want to use this, you can use this on your own risk. That's why in this project I have used the Next.js 13 new features, but not the app directory, because it's not good for production. So let's go ahead in the browser and see what's going on. If we get everything as before, Now I'll just click on this link. Now it will run the application for me. So it is loaded. As you see, everything is just as it is. We don't have any problem and everything is working. But now if we go back to the project, so here, and if we create a new folder for our app directory, so if you create a new project, you will get this already, but if you upgrade this like we are doing, then you need to create everything manually. So here I'll just type the app, and inside this I'll create a file which is called page.js. So the first change with the app directory and the pages directory is that the index.js is replaced with this page.js. So if you type any page.js inside any folder in your app directory, it will be your root file. So for now, you can imagine this as index.js. So let me save this, and here I'll just say RAFCE and create this page, but instead of the page I'll say here index. So this will be our index page. So let's save this. You can name it anything what you want, it doesn't matter. So now let's go back and let's refresh this. Now we should see some error here, but let me see if I did some mistake. Oh, the app directory should be written in lowercase, so that's why we don't get that message here. So let's do this like that. So now let me rerun this. So I'll just cancel the terminal and run this again, and let's see if we get anything here. Now we got our page here, and if we come back here, now as you see we got that error. Now this error is saying us that there's a conflict between our app and page file found. So we got app page.js and pages index.js. So one of this should be removed in order to continue to work on this project. So it means you can use the pages directory, or if you want to use the app directory, then you have to remove this index.js. In the other files or other pages will be still working. So let's remove this. So you can use also, you can delete this one from here, but I don't want to delete this, so I'll just here type app and I'll say here hold. So we will hold it, and also here for index.js the same way. So I'll go ahead here and I'll say hold. Now it's also hold, and if we go back we shouldn't see this error anymore, but instead of this we'll just see this index which is coming from our new page or new index, so which is this page.js. But as you see, we got two more files for us which we haven't created, but Next.js did that for us. We got one head and we got one layout, so we don't need to create a layout file in Next.js 13 by our own. So Next.js take care of this also. So this layout file is just exactly as we did before. In our components we got one more file with the name of layout, so which is here, and we have created this on our own. But in Next.js 13 app directory, the Next.js will create this for you, but the purpose and the method is the same way. So here we got our two navvars which are available in our all pages, and then we got our children's as prop. So the children will be all other pages in which we want to use our navvar top and navvar. The same way it is here. We got the children, and before this here we can use our components. So let me make an example navvar so you can understand, because if we use this navvar from here, it will need the data, and we don't got any data, so that's why we will get some error. So if you do this like this and you see some error, this is just because of this. But now instead of this, I'll just go ahead inside my components and I'll create a test navvar. So I'll say here test navvar.jsx like that, and we'll just create this. So let's save it, and inside the layout just here we will import this. So I want to import this here because I want to show you an error which is very common in Next.js, and if you get that error anytime, you must understand what's going on here. So I'll just close this and it's imported, and now if we go back we should see some error, and as you see we got this hydration failed because the initial UI does not match what was rendered on the server. So here, as our every files are server side, so that's why it says does not match what was rendered on the server, and the reason we get this hydration is because we are using this navvar or just component just without covering it. So to solve this problem, we can cover this inside reactive fragment, or you can use a div, or you can just use this inside your body tag or any tag you want. But you have to understand that anything you want to use in these pages, it should be covered inside an HTML tag. Otherwise, you will get that error. Here we are using this HTML tag, but if you use head and also body, so this will separate this also. That's why it's not working. Now like this, if I just save this, the error is gone from here. But now if we go back and cover this here, for example, inside our HTML outside of the body, still we will get that error. So let me show you this also. So here I'll say div. Now I'll just cover everything inside a div like that, and we will use this navvar from here, just here, save it, and if we go back, now if we refresh this, as you see we got this hydration problem again. So I don't understand why it's going like this. This is also an error from app directory, and as it is in beta, so we can't say anything about this, and that's why they say it's not ready for the production, because such problems can occur in your app and you will never know why it is happening. Now to solve this, as we did before, we can just use this inside our body tag here. So let's go ahead, and inside this body tag I'll just paste it and it should do the job for me. Now as you see it's working. But also let me show you something else. So here I'll use the use effect, so or just a state, or you can use on click. In that cases which you use everything or any functionality which you use for your client side, they will also generate some error. For example, here I'll say const, for example, so let's just use some brackets here. So I'll say test, comma, use test. So like this, it will be use state. So use state, and we'll import this from React and save this. And even we haven't used that, as you see here, we got one error. Let me show you this in browser. So here, as you see, it's saying you're importing a component that needs use state. It only works in a client component, but none of its parents are marked with use client. So it means any file which we create in the app directory is server-side file. So if you want to use for client side any file, you have to use this tag of use client. So now I'll just copy this one and paste it on the top here, and I'll save this. And if we go back now, as you see, it is gone. Now still we are seeing an error here, but it's my mistake because I'm using the use state just like that, but it should be a function. So inside this, we'll just use it as function, and if we refresh this, now as you see, that problem is also gone. So remember, anytime you want to use something like use state or use effect, or even if you use on click, for example, here I'll say on click. So let me show you this also. On click, it should use a callback function, and here I'll say it should alert, and so it should alert for me, and this will be a message. So I'll say test, just like that. But I removed this use client first. So let's save this. And if we go back, as you see, again, we get the same error of use client. So if we go back and remove that here and save it, and if we go, as you see, we got everything as it is. And also, if we click on our element, we'll get that alert of test here. So this feature is also new in the Next.js because everything will be rendered server side, and anything you want to use as client where you need your state or use effect, you have to use this use client tag here. With that being said, now let's remove this file. We don't need this, so I'll just remove this from here and save it, and let's see what is inside this head. Now this head will be just same thing as we did before, or in Next.js 12 or Next.js 13 pages without the Next.js app directory. We were using inside this index.js, and here we normally use the head also. So if you use the head here, it will be appear in every page. So as you see, we have imported this head also there from Next.js, but for some reason I have removed that from there, so I don't need this here. But if you want to that SEO optimization, which mostly we use the Next.js for that, so this will be also an option for you to use this head from here. But even if you want to use for every page a separate head, you can do this also. For example, here for this head, we will say it is just test as title. So we'll save this, and if we come back here, we should see the test here. Now let's go ahead and make some route here. So creating a route inside this app directory is also slightly different. For example, here you can't directly create a new file, but instead of this, you have to create a folder. And this folder should also be inside the brackets. So it will be just this square brackets, and then you will name your route. For example, I'll say it is about us. So about, for example, so let's enter this, and inside this then you will create all those JSX files for this about file. So here now, before we create index, now here we just say page.js. Now this page.js you can use just once for every folder, and this will be your root file. So here I'll say rfce, and now instead of this page, we can just say it's just our about. So about, and let's close this one. I removed this. Now let's save this. So now if we go back to browser, and here I'll type something like about, and if we enter this, as you see, we are inside the about page, but we are getting the same title here. So we don't have any new head for this page here. So for this, if you want to change this, we can do this also. Now I'll go inside this about page, and here I'll create another file with the name of head, just as we did before. So, or just as we got it here, the same way will be here. So I'll just copy everything from here, like this, and paste it here. And here we will name this something like about us. So like this, and now it is there. But of course, now to use this for this page, also we need a layout. And that's the beauty of this app directory, because for every page you can create its own layout. So that way you don't need to re-render all your components. You can have a sidebar, for example, for your about us, and this will be not re-rendered every time. It will be just there for you. Now let's create this also. So here I'll say layout.js, just like before, and let me copy everything from here also. I'll just copy it and paste it here, and the rest will be the same thing. Now we are getting this test navbar. Let's remove this like that, And here inside the page, as you see, we don't need anymore to cover everything with our layout file, just as we did before. Here we used this layout file and then we covered our app.js. So if we go to our app.js, and as you see, it's covered by this layout, and that way we are covering everything in layout. But here we don't need this anymore. So let's see if it's working. Now if I come back here, as you see, we got here our about us. Let's make some changes here. So now I'll go ahead and change that title again. So it will be just this about head here, and I'll say about us title changed, for example, or updated, whatever. So let's save this, and if we come back, as you see, it is changed. So you can have your own head for any component or for every page you want to use. Now as we did this also, you can see we got the same structure for routes also. So this way we can also define our header separately, and also we define every route or every extra page like this, and inside every page we can just put its own layout, its own header, and also its own page. In here also we can use directly the component. For example, if we got any other component to use for about us, which is especially for that, then we can just use that directly here instead of a folder like components. But there is no best practice for this yet, and it's also not in production, so I prefer using the components like this, so we can use that also for pages, and later on we can easily just switch to the app directory that way. So now let's go ahead and the Next.js file. So I have closed them here, so again I need to open this Next.js beta like that, and we'll get this one from here and see what else is new here. So we got upgrade guide. So if you want to upgrade your any project, you can just use these commands from here. It will just upgrade everything for you, so it's not a big deal. And also for the links, you have to remember there's a new change. We did this before, but let me refresh your mind here also. So before, as we did, was just like this. So Next.js 12, we used this a tag also for the link, but now in Next.js 13 we don't need this anymore. You can just use your name without this a tag or HTML a tag or the anchor tag. So here you can use your href just as normal, and everything will work for you under the hood. So you don't need to take care of this also. And in this course we did the same thing here. And we got some font optimization. So here for the font optimization, we got some new changes or some good news for everyone, which Next.js says previously Next.js helped you optimize fonts by inlining font CSS. So in version 13, it introduces the new Next font module, which is in beta of course, which gives you the ability to customize your font loading experience while still ensuring great performance and privacy. Next font is supported in both pages and also app directories. And I think we have used this already in this project, so that's why we don't need to cover this here anymore. And the rest is the same thing as we did before here, so in this way you can just connect your app directory with your app, in which you will say your app directory to true. Then we got our layout, which we have created already, and there are many other things which you can cover by yourself, so watch out. This is also a beta documentation, but believe me, the upgrade guide is great. You can learn everything and try out everything one by one. But for us, for the moment, let's go ahead and I'll show you how to do everything one by one, so we don't need to watch everything here. So we will start everything also by fetching the data, and we'll use different functions, and I'll show you the main difference from this one And you'll see that there are many differences between data fetching as we did before with get server-side props, get static props. In the new Next.js app directory, we don't need to do that like this. So let's go ahead and see how to do everything. Now for us inside our project, we got our app. Now we got a new index, which is this page.js. Now inside this, we got everything from our index, but now instead of creating everything, we can just copy paste everything, because now we got everything in our old or our old index. So here we can just copy everything. Now what we can do is we'll just go ahead and use these devs from here and just copy and paste it. Now let me copy this one and I'll bring this here to my page.js, which is this one and not the about page.js. So here inside this we got this index. We can call this something else also. You can call it anything you want, but for now, as it's our home component, I want to restructure this. We restructure this by just exporting the default. So I'll say export default, and this will be async function because we will be using or we will be fetching the data here. So it will be function, and this time we call this home. So it will be our home, and we need our curly braces again, and inside that, of course, we have to return something. So we are returning something, and this will be our data which we have copied. So it will be the div hero section and footer, and here this footer we don't need this, so let's remove this because we'll be using the footer inside the layout. So here we got everything. Now let me cover everything also inside the main. So the main tag will be there. Now let me do this. So we got main, so it will be just in lowercase, and we'll close everything also as main. So after this, here I'll say it will be just closing, and I'll save it. So now it gets interesting as we start fetching the data. Before, what we did was inside my index.js, here we have used two functions which you can't change the names. So we got function get server side props, and inside that then we fetched all those data, then we send it as props to our component, and then we received it of course as props. But what we do now in the new pages or the app directory page, what we can do is here we can just write our function directly without using those names like get server side props or get static props. Now for this, here we need first of all import these two here. So let's import them. Now I'll import the hero, and then we got the section, so we'll import this also here. After that, here we will fetch our data, and it will be an async function. So I'll say async function, and I'll call this get post. Now as you see, I'm not using any name convention from the Next.js, but I'm giving it myself a name. It will be just a normal function, and inside this function then we will use the fetch. So here I'll say const, and I'll call this for now, for example, res, and this should be await, and we will fetch everything. So we'll use the fetch function, and you don't need to import this function. This will just work like that. So here we need now our API link, which is inside our next. So let's copy this one from here. Now I'll copy it, and we'll paste it just here. Now of course we need to close this, but before closing that, here we need a curly braces. So we put a comma, and then we put our curly braces. Inside this curly braces, you can define different props. For example, if you want to use similar to get static props, then you would be using cache, and then I'll say here force cache. So it will just directly cache everything for you. So now this will cache the data until we change it. So this way we will have every data inside the cache, so we don't need to just ask the server for the new data all the time, which is the case for our blog. But if you want to send a request for a certain time, so as we did for example for Next.js 12 where we define that revalidate every 10 seconds, you can do this also. So for this you will just type here next, and then you need another curly braces here. So it will be curly braces, and you will say revalidate. So revalidate, and here you'll pass how many seconds you need to revalidate your data. So this will be the new way. As you see, it is just clean, and also very less code you need to type for this. Everything is just easy and much clean as before. So let's go ahead, go back to the cache forced cache, because we want to force cache every data as we are using a blog. So as we got this, and also now to fetch the categories, we need to copy this once more time. So I'll just go ahead here, and now this time I'll say it will be get categories. So like this, and then we need our link from there. So here we got this link. Now let's use this also here. So we just change this link like that, and the rest will be just the same thing. We don't need to make any changes. But here, of course, after caching everything, we have to return it. So here I'll say return all the data as JSON for me. So it will be res.json function, and like that. The same way we need this also for the categories. So let's close here, and then we'll be using that like this. Now how to use those data? Here in the app directory, we don't need to pass everything as props now. So here what we can do is just as normal we do. I'll say const, and here we will name it. So here as we got everything as props.post, so it will be just posts, and this will be equal to what? Of course, to our function where we are fetching the data. So it will be await as its async function. So, and it will be get posts. So we'll get all the data the same way we need for the categories also. So let me copy this one and paste this, and here for the categories, let me remove this one also. And for categories, of course, we name it just like that here. So const categories is equal to get categories. So like this, and save it. Now this way we will get all those data, and everything should work for us as before. So let's check out everything if it is working or if we got any problem. Now here we are getting this use state problem, so don't worry about this. But as you see, we got here one more problem. Here it says you have imported hero and you are using use state for this, which means if you are using use state, of course you need to use this tag for use client. So what we have to change is that we should go inside the hero, and on the top we should put the use client tag here. Now as we are not fetching anything here, so this will be our client UI, and we don't need to worry about anything because everything is coming from server, and the users here, they can just see our components but not our data or our functions or anything similar to that. So let's save this one, and of course we need to do the same thing for the section. So let's go ahead inside the section, and now as you see here also we are not fetching any kind of data, but here we'll just type this one and this should do the job for us. And now we get one new error, and this error says this router, it got some problem here. So let's see, now it is also inside the form dialog. So let's see what's wrong with that. We'll go here, and here we got the router. So let's see what's going on here. So let's search for that. So here I'll say router. Now router.push, and router is not mounted, it says. So let's see what we can do here. So here you may have understand what we should do, because now we are using the app directory and also the Next.js 13, so we can use the next navigation. So here, instead of this router, we will say const use router, and we will import this like that. So it will be just const use router from next. Oh, so here we are importing the use router from next router, but in the new app directory we have to import this from next navigation. So let's do this and see what happens here. As you see, we got all the data as before, and also as you saw, the images were loading just one by one, so this will give us a great user experience. And before we did everything by us in React, and this is very difficult job to do something like that, but in Next.js you will get this directly without doing anything for that. So this is great. As we got everything, let's go ahead and update this one, and I'll say here 12, and let's save this. And as you see, it is also updated here. So everything is working as before, because for those functions which we are using for the CRUD functionality are just here, and for this we don't need to worry, because they are just normal await functions which will send different requests, and of course the server then can answer them as their methods. With that being said, now let's go ahead and click on a page and see what happens. Now if we click on it, we will get our data, and also here you saw that we first got the data and then the image. So let's refresh this. Now it's working very fast because everything is now cached. So let's go ahead and try this for something else. So for example, this one. Now look at this effect. Look, it's coming after a certain time. But now if I refresh this, look, it's just here. Even if I go back here and click on this, it will just be there, because everything is cached and everything is working as we want. Perfect. Now it is just great. This is the beauty of Next.js. With that being said, now let's go ahead and take care of our navvers here, because we don't got any navvar here and that's not looking good. So let's go ahead inside the layout page, and not this new layout but the old one, which is this here. And from here we can just copy these two components which we want to import inside the layout. So they will come here, and we'll use this inside the body like this, and let's say top, so we need to import them. And also this one, of course here we will get some error now, so let's remove this one first, and like this. And if you go back and refresh this, so now as you see the same error, the navvar.jsx. So as it is client side, we can use the use client here also. So let's go ahead to navvar.js here, and we'll just use this tag here on the top like this. And also here we need the navvar top, so let's go to navvar top, and we'll just use that same tag here like this. And if we go back here and we refresh this, and there we go, we got our navvar back available for us, but we don't got any footer here. So let's bring our footer, and the navvar top is also here. So for this, I'll go ahead inside the layout. So, and here after this children, as we want to use this on the end of every child, so here it will be footer. So let's import the footer just like this and save it. So now if I go here, now if we refresh this, now there we go, it's working, but we got react.create context as not a function. So let's see, it's aborted again. Now let's go ahead and find out what's going on. If we got the real footer, And here also we need to use this client tag. So this will be just client, otherwise you will get some errors like this also because of this catalyst and also everything else you are using for the UI, and server doesn't know what to do with it, so that's why you may get errors like that also. So go ahead, use the use client tag here. So then we run this, and if we go back, it should just work as before. And as you see, everything is loaded and our footer is also here. Perfect. Now everything is working as desired. So we got too many categories here. So that's why we are getting also this black one at the end. So if we create one more category, everything will work for us. Now for this demonstration, so let's go ahead inside the hero or inside the section. So we need the section, and here we need to take care of that. So here we use the 10. Now we want to show just, for example, 6 categories. So let's use this like that and see what happens here. Now let's refresh this one. So now as you see, everything is working just like before. We got our category of 7 and it's white, and also the images are loading slowly because we are using everything from the Pixabay, and of course it needs some times to be loaded. But the problem is here also we should show some loader. And now if we click on something, you can see we don't see any loader. It just redirects us, but we can't see any loading here. So let's go ahead and take care of that loading also. Now for the loading, also there's something new for Next.js 13. So if we go back to documentation, here we got loading UI. Now as you see, there are many informations, but this is how we will be using this. We will create a new file which will be just loading.js, or they are using TSX, so it will be TypeScript, and we can use this skeleton or anything we want to load for every page. So let's see everything how it is working. So for this, I'll just copy this one from here, and we'll go ahead. For example, for our app, first of all, we need a loader. So here I'll say new file, and you have to name it just exactly like this, loading. So I'll go ahead here, and again we'll create a new file, and I'll call this loading.js or JSX. If you are using TypeScript, of course you will be using TSX or TS. So it will be for me JSX, or everything is JS. So let's create this also JS, and here we can just paste that code which we have copied, which is just exporting the default function of loading, but we have to load something. Now here loading skeleton is another component, of course. So for now we don't have this component, so let's create this component also. So for this, I'll come here and I'll create a new component, and I'll say loading file or whatever we call this. So it will be something like loading page. So like this, .jsx. And inside this, we need the component. For now, I'll be saying just loading here, like that. And we don't make any design, so you can see the difference. And here we'll just import that loading page. So loading page, it's imported and save. Now we shouldn't see this error also, it's gone. Now as you see, it's saying loading because we haven't got our data, and as the data is here, so the loading is gone. The same way if we click on here, now it's not showing for that. So the reason is because for every route you define, you have to take care of the loading also. But at the moment for the details page, we are using the pages directory, which is here, post, and we got this slug, which will just return, and we are using these functions as before. So let's take care of this also. we'll just need everything from here, so like that, and we'll just copy it, and let's go ahead inside the app. We don't need this about, so let's remove this, and here I'll say it will be just details or something like that. It will be just, for example, as before we did, it will be our posts folder, so posts like this, and inside this of course we got all those pages related to that. Now instead of this page, we'll just paste everything from our post, but here as you see we don't have those data. Now let's save this just like this, and we don't have this post here, so what can we do for this? And if we go inside our index, or not index but inside the post, so we got post inside the slug, and as you see here we got also these two functions, get static paths and also get static props. So there's also a big change here for these methods also. We don't need to use them like that. For this we will do the same thing as we did before. So I'll just go ahead inside the post, and here I'll create one more folder, and I'll call this just, or even I'll just remove this post here, so this will be just my post, just normal, so it will be a normal folder, and inside this I'll create another folder because that will be the page which we want to return. So here I'll say it should be slug, so, and if you are using ID, you can say this is ID or can name it anything you want, it doesn't matter. So we got another folder, and inside this we can create our page, and I'll say this will be page.js, and here inside this we'll bring everything from our slug, which is inside the post and slug. So I have copied this in wrong place, so let's go ahead and copy this back from here. I just cut everything out, so, and then inside this page.js we'll just paste it out. So now we do the same thing. So I'll say here the async function, so we need an async function to fetch those data, async function, and this function will be again the get posts, so it will be just same thing as before. You can just copy that from there, but this time we will use a parameter here which will be our post ID, or you can say this is our slug, whatever you call this. And inside this we need again the same thing, const stress is equal to fetch, and inside that of course we need our post API. So for that let's go ahead also inside the slug and copy everything from there, so we don't get any error. Now as you see we got this post here, but here to use this in our new way or our new method, so here then we need to also use the backticks because here we need the JavaScript now. Now we'll use this like this, and of course after this we need an ID, otherwise we don't get anything. So here we'll say $, and this will be our post ID here, so post ID. That's why we need this parameter here, so like that, and we got this. After this of course we have to return something or return our data, so for this I'll say return response.json, so we'll get everything as JSON like this, save it, and then inside this we don't need this props anymore, so I'll just remove this one from here, and I'll go ahead here and I'll say const slug, and this will be something like const slug, so we have to name this, so it will be props, so we need the props dot params dot slug, so we'll get the slug from the props but we have to of course pass this here also, props. And then we need for another const table for our post, so I'll say const post is equal to await, and this should get the post for us. So I'll say get posts like that is equal to await get post. Now as this function is not async, so we have to make this async also. So here I'll say async like that, and this error will gone from await here. Now let's save this and see the result. Now let's go back. So now if I click on this, it will return us everything as before, and now we are using the new method of Next.js. So we are not using the same thing like before. So now if I go ahead here inside the details, so we got this one, and let's hold this also. So to be secure that we are not getting everything from here. Now let's make this hold, and also for the slag, so this will be something like that, and I'll just say here hold, or we don't need to use the hold in the posts because this will create some problem, but for now let's see if there is any problem. The page could not be found, so it's not finding that. So let's go ahead, see what's going on. The server is crashed, and now we have to remove this one. So I'll say just post, and then we can use that again like this, and let's try it again. Now it's loading again, and we got everything here. Now those crashes of the server is just normal. Sometimes you will get those because in the app directory, first of all it's in beta, and also if you're upgrading, so it needs just those restarts. So I'll click on this, and it's not finding that props here, so we have to take care of that also. Now as we are using everything here inside our post, not this hold one, so it means we are doing something wrong. So we got this page.js. Now here we are getting all those props, but so let's create a new page for these details and remove this everything from here, so everything should be clear for us. So for this I'll just use this return, or we can just use this container and remove everything from here, and we don't need this return also here because we don't want to return anything but our component, which we will just create now. So it will be return, and then we'll be using our component, but let's go ahead and create that component also. I'll create a new component and call this details.jsx like that, and let's say our FCE. Now it's here, so we'll just use our container here. We got that, and we need all those imports here, so let's remove them from here. We just need the React here, so, or we don't need anything actually, just let's remove them and bring this just here like that. We got the next router, and we got everything we need, but here we need our details page here, so I'll say details like this, and we will pass everything as post, so it says just post like this, and it will be post again. So we named this post here, that's why. So let's close this one, and also inside the details we will receive that post, so it will be just here. I'll say post, and everything is done now like that. And here we got our data which we are fetching, and then we are got our slug, which is from props.slug, and we got post, and everything just should work for us. So let's save this and see the difference. Now let's also use this page here and not details anymore. So perfect. So let's go ahead and see if it's working now. No, we don't see any data here, but this says this page could not be found. So that means that everything is working, but we have to just specify the right path here. So we are making some mistake. Now let's go inside the hero and see if everything is redirected to the real link source. So we got the link source here, so this should be somewhere here, like here. So as you see, it is redirecting us to the post and the slug. So we got the post. We are making a mistake, and this is because we are using the post as uppercase. So let's remove this and make this as post, and this should do the job for us. But let's see if we got further problems inside our details page. And as you see, we got our data we are fetching, and here also the details is imported from material UI. So be careful, don't do this like that, because you will get lots of problem here. So it can't return any kind of page for you. So it will just try to fetch something, and then you will see some blank page, or you may encounter some crashes of server. So that's why remember to import this from the real path, which is from here now. And as we got this, so let's save it. And also this details, so let's see if it's use client. No, so we have to make this also a client component. So I'll say here use, and then we say this is client. So this will be also our client component. Now for this, we'll go back and let me refresh this. It has crashed the server. So let's go back and restart that page, or restart the server, and it's restarted. So let's try it again. So now as you see, we are getting this error because of our router. So we need to use the next navigation. So let's copy this one inside our details. Now here we got this details, and this should be next navigation and not next router. So as we got that, again I made some mistake with use client, and I use an hyphen here. So let's remove that hyphen and let's save this. If we go back, it should work. Now this error comes from server if you say something like this. So now we should be able to see our post. So now as you see, everything is working perfectly, but you may also notice that there is no navbar and also no footer. And the reason is for Next.js 13, you have your own layout for every page or every directory. So here, as you see, we got one more layout, and this has nothing, no navbar and no footer. So if you want to use a new nav or a new footer or something special for your details page, you could add that here. But if you don't want to do this, you can just delete this, and this layout will take effect. So let's remove this. So for now, I'll just delete this one. And if we go back, and we should refresh this, of course, and after refreshing, we should be able to see that. Now as you see, we got our navbar and also our footer both here, and also navbar top. So everything is working as desired. Now let's refresh this and see if we see any changes or any problem. Now as you see, we don't got any problem, so everything is working perfectly for us. Now let's make a link on this. If we click here, so it should return us back to the home page. So for this, I'll go ahead and hit, or it was in the hero, I think, or it is in our navbar. So we need to go to the navbar, and here we will just find there that link. As you see, the logo is here, and we can cover this inside a link. So for this, I'll just here import the link from Next.js. So import link from next link, and we'll just close this from here, and here we can define now the href. So the href of this should return us to the home, which is this slash here. Now let's cover everything here to that, and now it's just coding straight, and I'm not covering the others. So let's go ahead and see, and if we refresh this one, so now as you see, it's clickable, and also we got this link design here. So now as we got this link here, and if we click on it, it should return us to the home page, but nothing happens. So if we click on it, it is doing, but I think we are not loading the data yet. Yes, so it was loading the data and we weren't able to see any loading here. So if we click on this, it will just return this here. Now as it's cached, so that's why it's working very fast. So let's try this one. Now as you see, our loading is here, and it has loaded that data for us, and if we click back, we will go ahead and inside our home page. Now let's take care of that loading because it's not beautiful. If we click on it, you'll see just some text here. So let's take care of our loading component also. So for that, I'm going to use the Pixabay. So let's go to Pixabay, and from there we will find for GIFs. So like this, and here I will say it should be spinner, and we got just this one here. Or let's see, let's for example say like bear. So bear dance for us. For example, this one is looking nice. So let's use this one. So this is here. Now we can just download this image. So this is the link which you can use for that, but you have to download this. So you can just directly download this. So click here, I'm not robot, and download this. Now it's downloaded. So let's go ahead inside our Next.js, and we have to import that. So for this, I'll just go ahead in the VS Code, and here we need that. So where we should use this, we can use that inside our public, because this file will be public, just like this Vercel icon. So we can use also that. So I'll just drag and drop that here. So you have to download it and drag and drop it here. Then we got this beer loading.gif, and we have to use the same thing here. Now for the component of this, I'll just go ahead in the components and create a new component, and I'll call this, for example, spinner. So let's say spinner.js or JSX. So let's make this also capital letter like that. And inside this, then we need to use client because it will be also a client component. So use client, and inside this we need some data. So let's say RAFCE. So we can just create that React, and we got our spinner. Now inside this we'll be using the container from Material UI. So you have to just import that. So MUI material like that. And inside this, then we can use some data. Now here I'll just give some specific design directly. So this is the styling. Here I'll say the display of this should be flex. So let's make this flex. And here we'll put a comma, and I'll say align items. So we'll align the item also center. And then we need also justify content center. So justify content, and this should be also center. Like that. And inside this container we'll be using our image. So let's save this one, save it, and here inside this, instead of this spinner, now here we'll be using an image tag, and this should be image, and the source of this will be our bear.gif, which is inside our public file. So we say bear loading like that .gif. So like this. And then we got our width. So here in Next.js, if you are using image, you have to define the image width also, and also the height. So the height of this will be also the same thing, so it will be 150 like that. And then it's self-closing, so let's close it. And also here I want to just type something like loading, but I'm not going to use any kind of style, so just one h1 tag, and inside this again we will type our loading message, so it is loading like that. Now we got this one, and now we need this inside our loading, so let's go ahead there. And we got our loading.js, and here instead of this loading page which we have created, we have to delete this one also. Now here we have to import the spinner like that, and let's take care of this one also. So let's remove this for now from here, save it, and from components, loading page, I've duplicated everything, so let's remove this like that. So now if you go back to our project, so here, now let me click on this, so it should show something for me. Now it's not working yet. Now let's see what's wrong. As you see, we got one stat, so let's use one image which is just not loaded yet. So it's working very fast, so that's why we are not seeing that. Now as you see here, we got that beautiful emotion, and let's see here. Now as you see, it's just looking cute. I think that's enough. And also remember, we can't use the loading which we have used before, which was just if we go back inside our pages. Now here we got also a layout, or example was layout, I think. No, not layout, so it's inside the app. Now we go in the app, so app hold, and here we got this next progress. So this next progress is not going to work with the Next.js 13. I have tried to use this also in some other tricks, but it wasn't working. So until it gets compatible with Next.js 13, so they may need to update this. But as we can create our own loading file here, so for every page, even if you want to use for the details and new loading, so we can just come here and create a new file with the name of loading.js, and we can make our own loading. So that's why it doesn't matter if we have this Next.js progress or not. But that's it, guys. We have updated everything successfully. So we got everything. We can see our data, we can update them, we can create new data, and also we are able to delete them if we want, and we can go to our details page, and everything is working just as we want. And also if it takes time for loading, so we got our own spinner, so everything is working according to the plan. We have successfully updated everything. So that's it, guys, for this series. We have learned everything from Next.js 13 to Next.js 13 app directory. So now you should be able to create your own blog or any kind of project using Next.js 13 and also Material UI. With that being said, so if you have any problem, any question, you can just use the comment box. I'll be glad to answer you. And also, if you want to learn more courses like this, don't forget to press the subscribe button and also the bell icon, so you get informed as I update more courses like this. With that being said, I wish you all the best. See you in the next course.